The cool, sterile air of Chicago General Hospital was Dr. Evelyn Stone's sanctuary, a fortress built of ambition and a heart carefully shielded from pain. At 34, she commanded her department, the youngest head in hospital history, a testament to her fierce dedication and an emotional detachment she'd perfected since her devastating divorce 3 years prior. Her ex-husband, Dr. Victor Thorne, had cruelly discarded her for a younger colleague, accusing Evelyn of being too focused on her career, too cold. The betrayal had ripped something vital from her, leaving her shattered, yet she'd rebuilt herself, stronger, yes, but utterly impenetrable. Love, that was a vulnerability she could no longer afford. Dr. Lena Petrova, Evelyn called to her colleague, her gaze barely lifting from a patient chart. A new physical therapist starts today. He'll be working with your cardiac patients. Fine, Evelyn added, her tone clipped. Just make sure he adheres strictly to my protocols. Later that afternoon, as she entered the cardiac rehabilitation center, Evelyn froze. The new therapist was a tall, warm-eyed man, his gentle hands guiding an elderly patient, Mrs. Kim, through exercises. Mrs. Kim, you're doing wonderfully, he encouraged, his voice a soothing melody. Remember, true healing requires patience with yourself. Something in his voice, so genuine, so unhurried, sent a tremor through Evelyn's carefully constructed defenses. When he looked up, noticing her, he approached with a disarming smile. Dr. Stone, I'm Isaiah Maxwell. I'm truly looking forward to helping your patients. Just follow the prescribed treatment plans, Evelyn responded curtly, thrusting a stack of folders into his hands. These patients need structure, Mr. Maxwell, not platitudes. Isaiah's eyebrows arched slightly, but his kind expression never wavered. Sometimes, Dr. Stone, he offered softly, they need both. Over the next 2 weeks, Evelyn found herself watching Isaiah with a growing, unsettling irritation. Not because he was incompetent. Oh no, but because he was simply too good. His patients adored him, their recovery times improved dramatically, and even her most challenging cases responded to his unique blend of clinical expertise and profound, genuine care. Dr. Stone, Mrs. Kim chirped during Evelyn's morning rounds. Have you truly met Isaiah? He's absolutely wonderful. He reminds me of my grandson, so patient and kind. Evelyn forced a thin smile. Mr. Maxwell seems adequate, but privately she was deeply disturbed by how often her eyes drifted to him. Isaiah possessed an extraordinary ability to connect, far beyond textbook medical training. He remembered Mrs. Kim's love for gardening, Mr. Garcia's anxieties about his construction business, and teenage Chloe Davis's crushing fear of never dancing again after her heart surgery. You know what your real problem is, don't you? Her best friend, Dr. Anya Sharma, declared over coffee. You're threatened by someone who dares to remind you that medicine is about people, not just sterile procedures. That's utterly ridiculous. Evelyn snapped. I am an excellent doctor. You are a brilliant doctor, Anya corrected gently. But when, Evelyn, was the last time you truly connected with a patient as a human being, not just a collection of symptoms? That afternoon, Evelyn found herself in the cardiac unit again, ostensibly checking charts, but her gaze was fixed on Isaiah as he guided a young father, Daniel Lee, through exercises. I'm terrified I'll never be able to play catch with my son again, Daniel confessed quietly. Fear is a natural human emotion, Isaiah responded with gentle reassurance. But you cannot let it define your recovery. Your heart is healing, Daniel. Trust the process. Something in his voice, a blend of compassion without pity, strength without judgment, made Evelyn's throat tighten unexpectedly. What was this feeling? Then came the breaking point. During a particularly harrowing case, Julian Brooks, a 17-year-old basketball prodigy, was admitted after collapsing, his rare heart condition demanding delicate surgery and extensive rehabilitation. Evelyn approached the case with her usual clinical precision, yet Julian was a whirlwind of anger, fear, and complete non-cooperation. I'm not doing any more exercises, Julian announced when Isaiah entered his room. What's the point? My entire basketball career is over. Who told you that? Isaiah asked, sitting calmly beside the bed, not towering over him like the doctors. Everyone. The doctor's my coach. Everyone. Isaiah was quiet for a moment. You know, he shared, his voice resonating with a quiet wisdom. I played college basketball before I got into physical therapy. A knee injury ended my playing days. Julian looked up, truly looked at Isaiah for the very first time. Really? Really? I thought my life was over too. It took me years, Julian, to realize it was just redirected. Evelyn, who had been hovering in the doorway, found herself drawn into the room, mesmerized as Isaiah shared his story, not with empty optimism, but with an honest acknowledgement of loss and the profound possibility of discovering new purpose. Your heart condition means competitive sports are risky, Isaiah continued, his gaze steady. But it doesn't mean you stop moving, stop growing, stop being extraordinary. It just means you discover different ways to be extraordinary. By the end of their session, Julian was tentatively participating, asking questions, even joking with the nursing staff. How did you do that? Evelyn asked Isaiah later, her voice filled with a rare wonder. Do what? He inquired. Connect with him. He's been hostile with everyone for weeks. Isaiah studied her face carefully. I listened to what he wasn't saying, Dr. Stone. Sometimes, healing demands understanding the fear hidden beneath the anger. Very philosophical, Evelyn remarked, a hint of mockery in her tone, yet without unkindness, for a physical therapist. And very clinical, Isaiah countered, his gentle smile feeling almost like a challenge, for a cardiologist. That evening, Evelyn worked late, reviewing surgical notes, utterly exhausted. 12-hour days were taking their toll, but staying busy kept her from thinking, from feeling, from remembering the aching emptiness of her apartment. A soft knock interrupted her concentration. The following week, Evelyn consciously avoided Isaiah. She scheduled patient consultations during his off hours, took circuitous routes through the hospital, and buried herself in research. But Isaiah's presence seemed to permeate the hospital, and nurses whispered of his kindness. Patients eagerly asked when that wonderful therapist would return, and even Dr. Petrova remarked on the improved recovery rates in cardiac rehabilitation. Her avoidance strategy crumbled when an emergency surgery ran late, leaving Evelyn finishing post-op notes well past midnight. She found Isaiah still in the rehab center, working with Mrs. Jenkins, an elderly woman struggling after bypass surgery. I just can't do this anymore, Miss Jenkins wept softly. I'm too old. Maybe it's time to simply give up. Mrs. Jenkins, Isaiah said gently, kneeling beside her wheelchair. You've survived 83 years, raised 5 children, lost 2 husbands, and built a business from nothing. Do you truly believe a heart surgery is going to defeat you now? It's different this time. I feel broken. You feel scared, Isaiah corrected kindly. There's a profound difference. Broken cannot be fixed. Scared just needs courage. And courage, dear Mrs. Jenkins, grows with time. Evelyn watched from the doorway as Isaiah patiently guided Mrs. Jenkins through gentle exercises, his encouragement unwavering. When the session ended, and Mrs. Jenkins was wheeled back to her room, smiling for the first time in days, Evelyn felt an undeniable crack inside her own chest. You were watching, Isaiah observed, noticing her. I was checking on patient progress, Evelyn replied weakly. And what did you observe, Dr. Stone? Evelyn struggled for an answer. What she'd observed was healing that transcended mere medical intervention, a connection that restored hope, a compassion that addressed not just physical symptoms, but deep emotional wounds. Your methods are effective, she admitted grudgingly. Isaiah smiled. So are yours, Evelyn. You saved her life in surgery. I'm just helping her remember why that life is worth living. The true crisis arrived on a rainy Thursday. Julian Brooks was admitted with severe complications. His heart condition had worsened, demanding immediate surgery and casting a dark shadow over his long-term prognosis. Evelyn plunged into his medical care with fierce determination, consulting specialists, researching experimental treatments, working 18-hour days. But Julian had retreated into the depths of despair, refusing therapy, barely speaking. He won't cooperate with rehabilitation, Evelyn told Isaiah in exasperation. Without physical therapy, his recovery chances plummet. He's not refusing therapy, Evelyn, Isaiah said quietly. He's grieving his future. Grief is not a medical diagnosis. Evelyn snapped. No, Isaiah responded, his voice calm. But it's a profound human experience that profoundly affects healing. That afternoon, Evelyn found Isaiah sitting with Julian, not doing exercises but simply talking. She intended to interrupt, Time was critical, but something in their conversation stopped her. I'm scared, Julian was admitting, his voice raw. What if I never get better? What if this is all I'll ever be? What if it's not? Isaiah replied gently. What if this is just one chapter in a story that's far bigger than you can possibly imagine right now? Easy for you to say, Julian retorted bitterly. Your life isn't falling apart. Isaiah was quiet for a long moment. My wife died 2 years ago. Cancer. I spent months believing my story was over too. Evelyn's breath hitched. She hadn't known about Isaiah's crushing loss. How do you keep going? Julian asked, his voice barely a whisper. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one breath at a time. Isaiah answered, his voice filled with a quiet strength. And I allowed people to help me remember that healing is possible, even when it looks completely different from what I planned. Evelyn backed away from the door, her heart pounding. Isaiah's gentleness with patience, his profound understanding of fear, his endless patience with her own stubborn resistance. Suddenly it all made perfect sense. He wasn't just naturally compassionate. He was intimately familiar with loss and the long, arduous road back to hope. That evening she found him in the hospital chapel, sitting quietly in a back pew. I heard about your wife, she said softly, sliding into the pew beside him. Isaiah nodded, not looking at her. Jessica, we were married 8 years. She was a second-grade teacher. She adored kids. She loved life. She loved everyone she met. I'm so sorry, Isaiah. Thank you. He finally turned to face her, his eyes holding a deep sorrow, yet also a profound peace. Loss teaches you things about healing that medical school never ever covered. Evelyn felt tears welling, the first she'd allowed herself since her divorce. I don't know how to let people in anymore, she confessed, her voice thick with emotion. I'm so afraid. What are you afraid of? Isaiah asked, his voice infinitely gentle. Being left again, being hurt, being not enough? Evelyn, he continued, his gaze unwavering. You are more than enough. You're extraordinary, but walls that keep out pain also tragically keep out joy. The conversation happened on a quiet Friday evening. Evelyn was leaving late again when she encountered Isaiah in the parking lot, loading equipment into his car. Working late again, Dr. Stone? He asked, his gentle smile a welcome sight. Catching up on paperwork, she hesitated, then, impulsively, added, what about you? Home visit with Mrs. Kim. She's been struggling with exercises since her discharge. Evelyn felt a pang. Was it jealousy? Admiration? She wasn't sure. Isaiah, she blurted out, would you like to get coffee? There's something I need to discuss about Julian's case. They ended up at a quiet cafe near the hospital, discussing Julian for exactly 10 minutes before the conversation drifted to far more personal territory. You've utterly changed how I think about patient care, Evelyn admitted, her voice soft. I used to believe emotional distance was a professional strength. And now I think perhaps it was just fear, cunningly disguised as professionalism. Isaiah studied her face, his gaze warm. What changed your mind, Evelyn? You. Watching you with patience. Seeing how true healing happens when people feel genuinely seen and deeply cared for. Evelyn, Isaiah said gently, his hand reaching across the table to cover hers. You were already a gifted healer. You just needed permission to show your heart. The words hung between them, charged with a meaning that transcended medical practice. I'm not looking for love, Evelyn whispered, as if testing the words. Isaiah leaned forward slightly, his eyes holding hers. Then stop looking, Evelyn, and just feel this. Feel what? She asked, her voice barely audible. The connection between us. The way you smile, truly smile, when you see me in the hallway. The way I look forward to our conversation. The way we both pretend this is just professional collaboration, when it so clearly feels like something much, much deeper. Evelyn's heart raced. Isaiah, I can't, what? He urged, his thumb gently stroking her hand. Can't allow yourself to care about someone. Can't risk being happy. Can't risk being hurt again, she whispered, the last words barely audible. Samantha, Isaiah said, his voice a balm. I lost the love of my life 2 years ago. I know about pain, about crushing loss, about the terror of loving again. But I also know that love, real love, is always, always worth the risk. Evelyn stared at their joined hands, feeling something inside her chest unfurling like a flower reaching for sunlight. Over the next month, Evelyn found herself falling, despite every rational reason to maintain her distance. Isaiah was endlessly patient with her fears, gentle with her hesitations, and unwavering in his quiet, persistent pursuit of her guarded heart. They began spending more time together, coffee after difficult cases, lunch discussions that blended patient care with personal anecdotes, quiet conversations in empty hospital corridors. Each interaction chipped away at Evelyn's formidable defenses. "You know," Isaiah said one evening, as they reviewed Julian's impressive progress, "there's a jazz festival this weekend. Would you, would you like to go? As friends, if that's more comfortable." Evelyn wanted to say no, wanted to cling to professional boundaries and emotional safety, but something in his hopeful expression made her nod instead. "As friends," she agreed, though the word felt utterly inadequate for what was blossoming between them. The festival was a revelation. Away from the hospital's sterile confines, Isaiah was even more magnetic, laughing freely, moving to the music with unconscious grace, introducing Evelyn to musicians he knew from his college days. "You played jazz?" Evelyn asked, genuinely surprised. "Piano," he affirmed, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Started when I was 7. My grandmother insisted all her grandchildren learn music." "Do you still play?" "Sometimes, when I need to process emotions that don't have words." That evening, back at his apartment, Isaiah played for her gentle melodies that spoke of loss and hope, of pain and healing. Evelyn sat on his couch, mesmerized not just by his musical talent, but by his profound willingness to be vulnerable. "That was beautiful," she breathed when he finished. "Music is like healing, Evelyn," Isaiah replied, closing the piano lid. "It requires opening yourself to beauty, even when you're terrified it might end." The metaphor was not lost on Evelyn. She was sitting in his living room, her walls completely down, terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. "Isaiah," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I'm scared." "Of what?" he asked, moving from the piano bench to sit beside her. "Of this, of how much I already care about you." "Evelyn," he whispered, taking her hands in his, "fear is normal, but don't you dare let it rob you of joy." When he kissed her, gentle and tentative, Evelyn felt 3 years of emotional isolation melt away. For the first time since Victor's betrayal, she allowed herself to feel completely present, completely open, utterly alive. The shift in their relationship was subtle, yet profound. At work, they maintained impeccable professionalism, but colleagues began to notice the way their eyes met, the way conversations lingered, the way they both seemed lighter, happier. Julian Brooks, now recovering beautifully and preparing for discharge, was the first to comment directly, "You and Isaiah are together, aren't you, Dr. Stone?" he asked during one of Evelyn's routine checkups. "What makes you say that, Julian?" Evelyn asked, trying to sound casual. "The way you both smile when you talk about each other. The way he lights up when you walk into the room. The way you actually laugh now." Evelyn felt a telltale blush rise in her cheeks. "Julian, my personal life isn't." "Stone, you helped save my life," Julian interrupted, his voice earnest. "You and Isaiah taught me that healing is possible even when everything feels utterly broken. I just want you to know that love looks good on you." That evening, Evelyn found Isaiah in the cardiac unit, finishing his final patient notes. "Ready to go home?" she asked, the question carrying a new delightful meaning now that they spent most evenings together. "Almost." He looked up from his charts, studying her expression. "You seem thoughtful today." "Julian noticed about us." "Is that a problem?" Evelyn considered the question. A month ago, she would have been mortified by workplace speculation. Now, she found she simply didn't care what people thought. "No," she said finally, her voice clear. "It's not a problem at all." Isaiah smiled, the expression transforming his entire face into pure joy. "Good, because I was hoping we could make it official." "Official how?" Evelyn asked, her heart hammering. "Dinner reservations. Meeting your parent, moving beyond as friends to as the woman I'm completely, hopelessly in love with." The words should have terrified Evelyn, Instead, they filled her with a rush of warmth and exhilarating possibility. "You love me?" she asked, softly, her voice barely a whisper. "Completely, hopelessly, and against all your valiant attempts to keep me at arm's length." His voice was gentle, yet absolutely certain. "The question, Evelyn, is how do you feel about me?" Evelyn felt the last of her defenses crumble. A joyous release. "I love you too, Isaiah. It terrifies me. But I love you." Isaiah crossed to where she stood, cupping her face in his hands. "Then let's be terrified together, my love." 6 months later, Evelyn and Isaiah's relationship had become an open secret at Chicago General. Their colleagues, initially surprised by the reserved cardiologist's transformation, now openly appreciated the positive changes in both their professional performance and patient outcomes. The true test arrived during the hospital's annual charity gala, a formal event where Evelyn would introduce Isaiah to the medical community's elite, including her former in-laws and Victor's colleagues. "You don't have to do this, you know," Isaiah said as they prepared, his hand gently touching her arm. "I know these functions are complicated for you." "They used to be," Evelyn replied, adjusting his bow tie, her smile radiant. "Now they're just opportunities to show off the most wonderful man I know." At the gala, held in Chicago's elegant Palmer House Hotel, Evelyn felt a surge of confidence and pride walking beside Isaiah. He wore his formal attire with natural elegance, and his genuine interest in the hospital's charitable work impressed even the most status-conscious donors. The moment of truth arrived when Dr. Victor Thorne approached their table, his new wife by his side. "Evelyn?" Victor's voice was carefully neutral. "You look well." "I am well, Victor," Evelyn replied calmly, her gaze steady. "Victor, Amanda, this is Isaiah Maxwell, our head of cardiac rehabilitation." Isaiah extended his hand professionally. "Thorne, I've heard excellent things about your surgical work." Victor shook his hand reluctantly, his expression calculating, clearly assessing Isaiah, wondering what this man meant for Evelyn's new life. "Isaiah has revolutionized our patient recovery outcomes," Evelyn continued smoothly, a quiet triumph in her tone. "We're pioneering an integrated approach to cardiac care that addresses both physical and emotional healing." The conversation continued professionally for several minutes, but Evelyn couldn't help but notice Victor's palpable discomfort with her obvious happiness and success. Later, as they danced, Isaiah commented quietly, "That went better than expected, didn't it?" "Did it bother you?" Evelyn asked, looking up at him, "the way he looked at us?" "Should it?" Isaiah asked gently, his eyes full of love. "Evelyn, I'm not interested in his approval or anyone else's. I'm only interested in your happiness." "Then you should know," Evelyn said, her heart overflowing. "I have never ever been happier in my entire life." 1 year later, Evelyn stood in the Cardiac Rehabilitation Center, watching Isaiah work with a new patient. A young woman recovering from emergency surgery, scared and utterly resistant to treatment. "I can't do this," the patient was saying, tears in her eyes. "It's too hard. I'll never be normal again." "Define normal," Isaiah replied gently, settling beside her wheelchair. "Because the woman who taught me about healing would say normal is overrated. Extraordinary is much, much better." He glanced toward Evelyn, who smiled and mouthed, "Who was this woman?" "My wife," Isaiah continued to his patient, his voice brimming with pride. "She's a cardiologist, and she taught me that the heart is the strongest muscle in the body. Not just physically, but emotionally. Hearts that have been broken and healed," she says, "are often the strongest of all." Evelyn felt tears welling, a familiar warmth spreading through her chest as she watched Isaiah guide the young woman through her first successful therapy session. His reference to her as his wife was premature. They were engaged, not yet married, but it felt utterly natural, a truth already acknowledged by their hearts. That evening, in their shared apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, Evelyn found Isaiah at his piano, playing the gentle melody he'd composed for their engagement. "Thinking about the wedding?" she asked, settling beside him on the bench. "Thinking about us, Evelyn, about how far we've come." Evelyn leaned against his shoulder. "I was so determined not to love again. I truly believed emotional walls made me stronger." "What do you think now?" Isaiah asked softly, turning to face her fully. "I think walls keep out pain, yes, but they also tragically keep out joy, connection, growth, everything that makes life worth living." He stopped playing, his gaze tender. "And my only regret about letting them down, Evelyn, is that it took me so long." Evelyn met his eyes, seeing love, patience, and unwavering acceptance reflected there. Isaiah, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, you didn't just heal my ability to love. You taught me that love isn't something you look for or plan or control. It's something you allow yourself to feel when the right person simply shows up. And how do you know when it's the right person? Isaiah asked, a playful glint in his eyes. Evelyn smiled, remembering their first true conversation in the cafe. When they tell you to stop looking and just feel what's already there. Isaiah kissed her forehead gently. I love you, Dr. Evelyn Stone, soon to be Dr. Evelyn Maxwell. And I love you too, Mr. Maxwell. Evelyn replied, her heart soaring. Thank you for teaching me that the strongest hearts are the ones brave enough to love again. As Isaiah returned to playing their song, Evelyn reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. She had begun as a brilliant, yet emotionally shuttered physician, convinced that professional success demanded personal sacrifice. Through Isaiah's patient, unwavering love, she discovered that her greatest strength was not her medical expertise, but her profound capacity for connection, compassion, and authentic care. Their love story had begun with her fierce resistance and his gentle persistence, but it had blossomed into something neither of them had ever expected. A partnership that made them both better physicians, better people, and infinitely happier humans. Julian Brooks, now thriving in his senior year of high school and volunteering at the cardiac unit, had been absolutely right. Love looked good on both of them, and more importantly, it had transformed not just their personal lives, but their shared professional mission, creating a model of healing that truly addressed the whole person, heart, mind, body, and soul. Sometimes the very best things in life began not with looking for them, but with bravely opening yourself to feel what was already there, patiently waiting to be acknowledged and embraced.